are we gonna sing about today?
Today we're gonna sing about equality.
Equality.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Well, okay. Everyone is equal, everyone's the same. Treat everybody equally is what we all should say.
It doesn't matter, boy or girl,
Or monster from the sea.
we're all created equal, so treat people equally.
Unless they're gay.
Hey, what's up, y'all? My name is Millennial Smark, and I'm bringing you the slop, the whole slop, and nothing but the slop. I want to rant about this. This is a long time coming, too. I'm so sick and tired of seeing this shit, man. And you can call it misogyny, you can call it sexist. I don't care. I'm tired of seeing it because you guys are giving way too much slack to the fucking women nowadays, bro. This is what started this off, right? So I'm going down Twitter, right? And I see Dave Meltzer give out his Mark Awards, right? Or his Mark rating, excuse me. And he says the women's chamber is a 3.5, Becky versus AJ Lee is a 3, Punk and Balor is a 4.25, men's chamber is a 4. You know, the dumbest fucking ratings in the world, right? None of these matches are even remotely close to 4 stars, but we're talking about a guy who gives matches 7 stars nowadays, right? But that's not the point. That's not the point of contention. The point of contention is when I go down in the comment section and I'm seeing so many men shit on the men's chamber match, right? Even one that really caught my attention, I put this out that said the men's chamber of 4, that was the worst men's chamber match we've seen in years. You legit only need to watch the last 90 seconds. Women's chamber was much better. Now, let me start off by saying this. That men's chamber match, as I said in my review, in regards to a chamber match, we're not talking about a regular match, even though even as a regular match, I found it to be very, very subpar, almost below average. As a chamber, that was a garbage match. Let me make that perfectly clear. The men's chamber match, as a chamber match, is fucking trash. That is a trash match. It was boring as absolute fuck. It was predictable as absolute fuck. You have moments in there. Like I said, I'm willing to give it something substantial as a match, but as a chamber, it's fucking horrible. It's fucking horrible. That's not the argument. My thing is, how do you look at that match? You understand that that's a horrible match, but then you look at the women's match and you're willing to give that a pass? Even that guy outright saying that it's much better. Okay, I'm gonna put myself over here. Okay, I don't do this very often, if not at all. Unironically, I'm gonna pat myself on the back here. I want you to go watch my Elimination Chamber review, okay? And I want you to click on each timestamp. And I want you, don't listen to how I'm necessarily explaining it with my own tone. Listen to the spots that I'm calling in each of the matches. Just go back to both. Click on both timestamps and listen to the spots I'm telling you in each match. Every match, both matches, I'm calling out all the high spots. There's not one high spot I missed in either match. For the most part, not even just high spots. I'm pretty sure I detailed at least 90% or 95% of both of those matches. There's no way in possible fucking hell you can sit here with a straight face and say that the women's match was better than the men's match. This is to the point. This is about as factual as you can get with someone's opinion. There's just no way. There's no way you sat through both matches and thought the women's match was better than the men's match. No, there's no way. That women's match is probably top 3 worst elimination chamber matches of all time. That men's match is probably top 10, but that women's match is absolutely top 3. That is a horrible match. Horrible. Predictable as all fuck too. It was a horrible fucking match. But they glazed it over the men's match. In some cases, they didn't even question Dave Meltzer's stupid ass rating about it. But they questioned the men. And I'm tired of it. I'm tired of this constant disparity in regards to the men being viewed in a certain way and the women being viewed in a certain way. Like, it's annoying because what it comes off to me as is, and this is how I personally take it, is that like you have a double standard when it comes to the men versus the women. How it comes off to me is that the men are held to a certain standard and they're going to be judged at that standard. But a woman can have something subpar, and because they're not as athletically gifted as the man, or they're not, how do I put this, as capable as the man, then automatically they have to be judged at a different standard, even though the men and the women, they're both vying for the same thing, right? They're both vying for the attention of the audience. That's all that matters at the end of the day. And yet we're judging the man on one set of standards versus the women on one set of standards. It's super duper annoying because, as I said, for I don't know, like almost a decade now, like it doesn't have to be this way. It really doesn't have to be this way. I'm not gonna go on like my usual spiel, my usual rants talking about women should be able to do whatever they want to do, and you should probably pick the best of whatever world you want to pick in order to have the biggest advantage. But what I will say, right, rather than constantly ranting or going on and on and on about that, what I will say is, I don't like the fact that you get to come in one field that does not warrant you at all, and you get to do whatever you want to do in this field. And because it's so unique, right? Because it's still somewhat of a unique premise to have women's wrestling, right? Especially in comparison to the men, right? You don't have to talk to me about this. You could talk to anybody outside of the wrestling fandom. Obviously, within the wrestling fandom is going to be more of a normal thing because we're here to watch the program every other week. But if you talk to someone outside of the fandom, I'm telling you, like, no one really looks at women's wrestling like that, right? When you think about professional wrestling, almost always the thing that you're going to go to, visually speaking, is going to be men wrestling, right? It's still an anomaly to most people, even in 2026, whether you like it or whether you don't like it. So my thing is, why put yourself in a position where you're going to want preferential treatment in regards to how you're judged, but here you have the men who are legitimately busting their ass, and now they have to take a back seat in regards to how they're viewed because you don't want to come off as sexist, or you don't want to come off as misogynist by simply telling the truth. Like, you can do that. You can tell the truth about the women. It's okay to look at the matches and say, yeah, they botched a lot. Yeah, that spot came off pretty cringe. Yeah, the women, as far as how they carry themselves in the ring, is very plodding. It's very slow paced. And mind you, let me make a distinction really fast also. I'm not talking about overall women's wrestling, right? Like, I get the Joshis. I understand. Let me separate them really, really quick too. I get it. The Joshi women wrestlers are on a whole different fucking level. If you want to put them on par with the men, I understand that. But that has more to do with their training, right? In Japan, I don't really think they distinguish between the training when it comes to the men and the women. The men get their asses whipped just as hard as the women get their asses whipped. That's different. Completely separate entity. I'm talking about North American women's wrestling, right? Or even, let's just say, Western women's wrestling, where they're not as disciplined as the women are in Japan. And you can even probably extend the same premise to Japanese women who happen to be in WWE today. I mean, for fuck's sakes, Io Sky legitimately is one of the better wrestlers in the Western world today. That's no coincidence. It's because of her training and because of how she came up in Japan, obviously, right? Same thing can be said for most of the Japanese women, whether you're talking about Kairi, Asuka, Julia, same shit, right? My thing is looking at the Western women, how they carry themselves, how terrible the majority they are at wrestling. I hate the fact that you can look at the Western women, whether we're talking about AEW, whether we're talking about WWE, whether you're talking about the indies. I'm willing to say, off the top of my head, and mind you, we're separating the Joshi wrestlers. The Joshi wrestlers, I don't even necessarily consider them women wrestlers necessarily. Yeah, they're women wrestlers, obviously, but what I mean, like, whenever I think of women wrestlers, I think of like Western women wrestlers. Joshi wrestlers are on a whole different fucking level, right? They're elite performers. Put them to the side. Western women in particular. It, for me, It's so wild to look at these wrestlers in particular and see how trash they really are, right? And yet, almost always, we have people not only gassing them up, but literally they'll gas that up and then transition into the next men's match and say, oh, that one. I'll give you a perfect example. I got a perfect example for you right now, okay? Remember, what was it? That would have been WrestleMania 37, I want to say. Probably 37, yeah. I think WrestleMania 37 would have been, that would have been 2001, if I'm not mistaken. Was it Cesaro and Seth Rollins at that WrestleMania, if I'm not mistaken? Let me look that up in real time, actually, just so I know that I'm not tripping. Hang on, WrestleMania 37, I believe. Hold up. Want to make sure I'm not tripping here. Stupid ass thing said WrestleMania 21. WrestleMania. Let's put 2021 to make it easier, then. Fuck it. Just to make sure that I'm not tripping. This should take like 2 seconds. WrestleMania. So I was right. It was WrestleMania 37. And I believe, yeah, it was Cesaro and Seth Rollins, right? Go back and watch Cesaro and Seth Rollins. Mind you, you don't have to be a fan of the in-ring stuff, right? Just go back and watch Cesaro and Seth Rollins. Now look at something like, say, for example, a Sasha Banks versus a Bianca Belair. Now, it depends on how you want to look at it, right? If you're going to say from a presentation standpoint, then sure, I'm with you. You can say Sasha Banks or Mercedes Moné and Bianca Belair was an overall better presentation and therefore an overall better match. But if we're talking from an in-ring capable standpoint, right? You look at Sasha and Bianca as an in-ring match versus Cesaro and Seth Rollins as an in-ring match, it's night and day. Seth Rollins and Cesaro absolutely destroys that match, right? Like completely and utterly fucking destroys it. But this is where the problem comes into, because then I'll hear people say things like, oh, Bianca and Sasha is one of the greatest women matches of all time. People have actually said that. People have actually fucking said that. They have called Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair one of the greatest women matches of all time. From an in-ring perspective, mind you, we're not talking about the overall picture. I mean, not even most wrestling fans don't even look at it from an overall picture. I mean, that's just, I hate glazing myself, but that's just people like me, right? Most people, when you say wrestling, they say in-ring, right? I'm the only retard that says wrestling overall, generally speaking. In what way is Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks even remotely close to Cesaro and Seth Rollins? Because it's not. It absolutely isn't. It's not even fucking close. Go watch both matches. It's not even fucking close. One match is clearly superior to the other when it comes from in-ring performance. But you glaze Sasha and you glaze Bianca because of immutable characteristics. You know what I mean? More in particular, I even think they would probably take the woman thing over the black thing, right? Because Sasha's half black. So they'll probably use the woman description more so than they would the men description, right? Which is wow. Like when we start judging things like that on immutable characteristics, then what the fuck are we even judging anymore? And now it's just a mentality contest rather than actual skills, right? Rather than actual meritocracy. And I think that's the number one word to use when discussing the women in situations like this, is that the women, they don't have to have merit whenever they have to display their abilities within the ring, right? Or even character work, for an example, right? Like, take the whole stuff that's going on with Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill of the past few days, right? Mind you, I've been entertained by it, and I would want to see more of that. In fact, I'm waiting for SmackDown tonight, not because of Cody and Drew, but because I want to see what Rhea Ripley and Jade Cargill are going to say about each other. Because after this past couple of days, I want to see if Jay's going to get slick at the mouth even further. Probably not, because someone from backstage is going to probably reel them in and tell them to chill the fuck out. But you never know, right? Someone might go into business for themselves. That's the key of watching tonight, right? But let me ask you a question. For how much the women got shitted on this past week, there's a lot of people who support Jade, a lot of people who hate Jade, a lot of people who support Rhea, a lot of people who hate Rhea. if that was a men thing, right? If men engaged in that manner, can you imagine, for an example, all that going down? Let's say, for an example, it's CM Punk and Seth Rollins, and they're going back and forth amongst each other, right? And then out of nowhere, you have fucking, I don't know, two people who despise CM Punk come out of nowhere, and they start siding with Seth Rollins. Do you know how many wrestling fans will call these men gay? That'd be the number one thing they call them, first of all. Never mind the fact that they be calling the women unironically, right? Because when you have Rhea and Jade, you're going to side with one on the side of the other and take it at face value. But if it was Seth Rollins and CM Punk doing this online with two men jumping in the side with Seth Rollins and Becky Lynch, vague tweeting or vague posting on another social media platform about her man, my point being is, you guys would have called that gay. You guys would have said, oh, so this is what WWE is coming down to when it comes to having to promote the men. AEW doesn't have to do any of this shit, right? But with the women, and rightfully so, right? Because I want to see it too. My thing is, though, what's with the double standards? I'm cool with what Jade and Rhea are doing in order to promote the WrestleMania match. But if another group of men were to do it, then they'd be called gay. They'd be called all types of names, right? But the women get to get away with it because it's catty and it's tea, right? That's what they call it, like sipping the tea and all that shit. And mind you, there are some people who are gonna, say the same criticisms about the women that they will about the men. I'm speaking generally speaking here, right? Generally speaking, I'll give you a perfect example of that. You can look at CM Punk's time in AEW and how much he was being called out of being a sissy this or acting like a punk this or a shit starter that. That was being said about CM Punk. That was being said about Jack Perry consistently about it, right? Consistently. But when the women do it, then it's just like, oh, this is tea. Generally speaking. Perfect example right there. Look, I'm not asking for a lot, but like, when you constantly put people on a pedestal like that, I feel they don't have to work hard for it, right? I feel like they can do whatever they want to do, and they're going to be able to get away with it because criticism is going to be laid at their feet, right? They understand what they bring to the table, and they understand what they can get away with bringing to the table, and therefore they can do whatever they want to do, and they'll be held to a different standard compared to what standard they should be held to, which is whether or not it was a good performance or if it was a bad performance, not whether or not it was a good performance for the women or a bad performance for the women. Because a good performance for the women is a bad performance for the men. If any men had the same kind of match Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks had, that should be given like 2 stars, maybe even lower. But because we're looking at historical stuff more so than the actual match in itself, well, then automatically it's considered one of the best of all time. It's lame. It's lame. And the same thing can be said about this Elimination Chamber match too, which got all this started, where it's like, okay, it's not fair. How the hell do you look at the men's match, notice how bad it was, but then look at the women's match and somehow it's better? It's pure unadulterated insanity to me. But again, this is the kind of shit that you guys do, and it gives women the attitude to have the carte blanche to want to do whatever they want to do, and then they end up botching, and then they end up being sorry, and they ended up being shitty. To get someone to talk shit about a women's match, 2 things has to occur, and I'm not lying, right? Either the match has to absolutely be garbage, or high key, another strong bias that I'm starting to notice also, to get a women's match like, distinguishably, considered bad, you have to be considered a person who came to wrestling based on their looks. Let me give you an example real quick, right? You can have, say for an example, Maxine Dupree versus Nikita Lyons. That sounds fucking horrendous on paper, right? And it probably would be horrendous on paper, right? But let's just say they actually were able to pull out, say, a capable television match, right? No one's going to actually look at that match and say, oh, that was actually pretty decent, right? No one's actually going to say that, right? 9 times out of 10, they're going to judge it next to the other women's match, which was fucking horrible, and they're gonna say, oh, well, that match is better than this match because these two girls, they represent an idea or an identity that does not compare to what I feel like women's wrestling should represent. So therefore, they're lower tier. And that match, which was equally on par with this match, but for those standards, consider who those women are, it should be considered shitty. But because it's Charlotte and Becky, for an example, right, who aren't really, who didn't come through the business in the same way as, say, Nikita Lyons, for an example, right? Or if you see, for an example, over there, say, I don't know, Rhea Ripley versus, I don't fucking know, Raquel Rodriguez or some shit, right? And they have an actual objectively terrible match. No, because they didn't come through the business in the same way as, say, for an example, Nikita and a Maxine. They were handed everything. They were not handed everything. So when they handed everything, actually have an actual solid match, especially for their standards, versus that one right there had pretty much the same type of matches as those girls, but they should be having way more caliber matches compared to these girls because they're veterans. Their match will get called great, and their match will get called shit, even though they were on par for the most part. That shit happens too a lot, I notice. I notice that a lot as well. It's bias, man. It's pure bias when it comes to professional wrestling. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below, and I'm very curious as to how you guys feel about this conversation. I don't feel like I'm saying anything wrong. Like, you're noticing just like I'm noticing it right now. You'll see people talk, and you'll see people have their opinions about the women, and almost always, it's going to be something. And hell, I'll even say this about the Joshis, right? Like the Joshis, I feel like there are more obviously elite performers within the Joshi wrestling community versus average women's wrestling in the Western world. But I've heard people say things, for example, about, you know, some women wrestlers who are Joshis who are considered some of the best wrestlers in the world compared to counterparts who are established from being an in-ring competitor, right? Like I'll hear someone say someone who's a Joshi wrestler is better than a Will Ospreay from an in-ring perspective, right? Like that kind of stuff also happens in, you know, those confines in regards to, you know, Japanese wrestling too. But, you know, it is what it is though. I think we should all just judge wrestlers based off of the capability of their work and not trying to, you know, soft pedal some of the things that they actually do just because they happen to be, you know, women versus men. I don't know. I just think that's lame as fuck. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. As always, my name is Devontae, aka Millennial Smark, and I'll be catching you fine folks later. Deuces and a P. Ice.